the volume.
Turn up the volume.
You've arrived at the destination for all things Kentucky. This is the Bleed Blue Network Podcast.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Bleed Blue Daily Show. And it is Thursday, November 7th. And where's the year going? I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're already through like 7 days of November already. Sorry about being a little late to get the show started. Was downstairs and kind of just lost track of time dealing with the kids. This show is presented to you by State Line Co. StateLineCo.shop for all of your State Line Co. Needs and a lot of good apparel and swag and things like that. So make sure you check them out. Use promo code BleedBlue to get 10% off your entire order. Some news today, just especially in the college football world, that just got broke. I'd say about a little over an hour ago. Billy Napier is reportedly coming back to the Florida Gators as head coach. I was a little surprised by that that they made the announcement now, but and not till the end of the year. But it's interesting that they put it out now. I don't know if it's preemptive, knowing that I don't know if it's preemptive with the gauntlet that they've got coming, like having it to where they're trying to keep their fans from not kind of getting more angry. I don't know. I mean, the next few games, they've got LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Florida State. I think those are the last four. Just a brutal stretch. But Scott Strickland put it out there, and that looks like what's going to happen. Billy Napier is going to stay. That's it a bit. It's a big job not to be open going into the off season with projected coaching carousel. That you're looking at. So, I know that there had been names like Lane Kiffin tossed around for the job. There'd been, I think just in general, Florida fans were looking for a change of pace, but I think Florida is sticking with it. They've had some good recruiting classes. I think there may be some worry that DJ Lagway would potentially leave if Billy Napier left. There's a lot of talent there. He got hurt against Georgia. I think it's a hamstring injury. Not sure when or if he'll be back. Hamstrings can be tricky. Obviously, it's not anything. It's not an ACL or anything like that. But that is an interesting development. I know people had been. I know that Florida had been calling for Napier to get fired for basically since the Miami game. But, some success, I guess, in the last couple of weeks, even though it's not all been wins. There's been progression. Obviously, Florida taking Georgia to the line despite the DJ Lagway injury. So, but also, look, Billy Napier has a buyout that's around $25 to $26 million. That would go down as the second largest buyout in college football history. I think it's an interesting pendulum here to Kentucky, with people who are saying, Mark Stoops should be fired or anything like that. Mark Stoops is a $44 million buyout. If $25 million to Florida is too steep to get rid of a coach who is severely underperformed at a multi-time national championship program, $44 million is beyond steep. So I think it's one of those situations where you really just got to look at it and just see that the landscape of college football has changed in the aspect that you need ADs not to give contracts out that are going to put the school in harmful situations or potentially harmful situations. And this just is a broad scope. This isn't a speaking against something specifically, just a broad strokes comment of, athletic directors, especially athletic directors who have been in positions for a while, can put schools in difficult situations. And I think Florida's in one right now with Napier, but also look, they have improved. They've been showing some signs. They have young talent, and I think they're probably banking on that being a thing that they do to keep progression and moving forward. If you look at other coaches who have, like Dan Mullen, I think was like 29-8, and he got fired. And I think Napier's something like 18-13, or maybe it's a little better. I'm just kind of guessing. I saw a number. I didn't check it. So, don't quote me on that, but I know it's not as good as Dan Mullen was. And so it's very interesting to see what's going to happen there. Florida keeping Billy Napier. So that's one coach out of the SEC East or the old SEC East. We don't have the SEC East anymore. It's so weird to not. It's so weird not to think about it as the SEC East and West still. But I guess it's interesting. If you're looking at the SEC as a whole, teams that will probably be looking for new coaches. I don't know. You're inevitably going to have coaching changes, but I don't think you can definitively look down and say, all right, this is who's going to be there and who's not. I don't think Mississippi State would make a change right now. Auburn, I think, is the one that's glaring. I think Auburn and Oklahoma, I think, are the two that if you're looking at coaching changes, those are the two that you look at and go, hey, that's the thing that you got to kind of look at. But his buyout is Hugh Freeze's buyout is 20 million as well. And so I'm like kind of looking at this as we go, just guessing. And if he's fired before December 1st, his buyout is 75% of the remaining salary plus supplemental pay for appearances and endorsements. So, that's a big number. That's a big number right there, as well. I don't know. I think schools are a little bit less likely to pay that. But you never know. Obviously, Auburn has a bigger fan base and a bigger donor pool. So we'll see. I think Sam Pittman's another one to keep an eye on in Arkansas. His buyout's not nearly as big. I think his buyout's somewhere in like the 6 million range, something like that. So I don't think Sam Pittman's buyout would be prohibitive for Arkansas if they decided to move on. I think that's maybe one, but Arkansas is 5-4, so maybe from that perspective. I could see Brian Kelly potentially at LSU being a candidate that they look if LSU was to struggle and lose, another 2 games at the end of the season. But if you look at the SEC, you've got Georgia, A&M, Tennessee, LSU, and Texas all with 1 loss. So you've got all those teams still are in the running. And then you've got several other teams that are in the running too that, if things kind of shake up, Alabama, Ole Miss, and even Vanderbilt with 2 losses. So, there's possibilities for a lot of schools. I don't think Vanderbilt's going to get there, but those are the schools that I think you got to look at and be like, hey, they've got a shot still to get to the SEC championship game. But I think if you're looking at the 2 biggest schools there, Auburn and Oklahoma, but I even think that Hugh Freeze's buyout at 20 million is a little prohibitive right now. Maybe it's not, but I don't think that would stop him or stop Auburn. But that's going to be it's going to be interesting. Florida was definitely like the number one that you thought, but again, $20+ million buyouts, especially when a big chunk of them are expected, is in mass. Is something that I don't think a lot of schools are going to be doing anymore. maybe your ultra rich ones, but I just don't see it being as something that people want to do moving forward. But look, a lot can happen in the next 4 or 5 weeks as well. I did see an article out there. Let me pull it up exactly. It was kind of a silly art. I don't know who this. It was Saturday Blitz. I don't necessarily know who Saturday Blitz is. They put something out, an article that said 5 reasons why Ryan Day to Kentucky makes sense for both parties. The thing that I don't agree with, and it really kind of instantly made me feel that this article was just a lot of conjecture, was in the very first thing. It said that, there's a good chance that Kentucky is, looking for a new head coach in 2025. I don't agree with that. I think this is someone who's just looking based off results and not based off of, anything else that's going on with buyout and things like that with Kentucky. And so I don't think that's it. Now, I will say this. We did talk about it. Like, I think on premise that it's flawed. And it says, although it would be a pay cut, I don't think it'd be a pay cut. I think he's making, I don't really know how much he's making. I think Ryan Day's making 9.5 or maybe 10. I mean, we're talking about a little less. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to see would be a pay cut for him to come here. I think there's a world in which it could happen. We talked about it on the show, right? If Mark decided to leave, if Ohio State doesn't win the national championship, some of the logic, some of the reasoning, I understand why some people were saying it in the system, or not in the system, in the article, like why it would make sense. But the premise of it, I just don't agree with, because Kentucky is not going to have a head coaching vacancy in football unless Mark Stoops decides not to be here. This will be a Mark Stoops only decision and not a Kentucky decision in the slightest. So could it happen? I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but to say that Kentucky's going to be looking for a new head coach is just, unless some other stuff starts coming out, it's going to be that's absolutely not true. I had a couple people ask about it and just wanted to address a little bit. I mean, in theory, yes, but in practice, I don't see it as the logical. Until Mark Stoops says he's leaving, I think saying that Kentucky's going to have a coaching search at 25 for a coach for 25 is just, I think it's just silly. Some other things, it looks like Maxwell Harrison's going to be back against Murray State. Believe that through the bye week that he's going to be around, so that'll boost Kentucky's secondary back up for the final 3 games of the season. Brock Vandagriff, we still do not know about. There's been a lot of hush-hush there. You're starting to see some people starting to talk about Cutter Boley a little bit more. Bush Hamdan said he's going to get a longer look. I've been a big proponent, if you've listened to the show, podcast, pregame, I've been a big proponent of giving Cutter a look for Murray State even before the injury. That had nothing against Brock Vandagriff. That was mainly so that was a game where you could get the kid and see what he's kind of got because the offense has struggled. My gut is I think Cutter might start against Murray State if Brock can't go. That's just my gut feeling. I think there's too much out there for Cutter not to make it or not to be the starter. I think there's too much noise out there. Obviously, that was very odd. Obviously, we'll find out a little bit more on Monday when we have normal press conferences coming back. And I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation for Mark Stoops on his Monday press conference. There's not been any media opportunity this week. So I think a lot of it is just anecdotal people hearing some stuff. But it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Kentucky doesn't play this week, but that doesn't mean that this is not an interesting week of college football. You've got some very interesting games. Florida goes to Texas. That could be an interesting game. You've got a really big one at 3:30. You've got Georgia taking on Ole Miss. You you really got to think that Georgia or that Ole Miss has to win that game to have any chance of getting back in the playoff race. It's at home. It's at Ole Miss, 3:30, so that's a very big game. All these games that Indiana have now, they're in the top 10. Michigan goes there. Michigan obviously is not as good as they were last year. They aren't really that good at all, but still interesting to see if Indiana can keep that up. They're a 14-point favorite. I don't think anybody would have ever thought that Indiana is going to be a 14-point favorite against Michigan in their lifetime, but here they are. Clemson goes on the road to Virginia Tech. Why that's a big game in terms of ACC standings. Also, Clemson just got absolutely throttled last weekend, I think, which surprised a lot of people. Colorado goes on the road to Texas Tech. Big game in that kind of like a de facto Big 12 title elimination game. Both teams have a chance still. And the big game in the SEC, again, I would say this is a playoff elimination game. Alabama on the road at Death Valley against LSU. Alabama is a 2.5-point favorite. I really think that's probably it's 100% an elimination game. Loser of that is out, both in the SEC title race and for the playoffs this season. I kind of would lean towards LSU in that game just because of where it is, but we shall see. And that's kind of it. I mean, a game that could be interesting. BYU is 8-0 on the road at Utah. Utah's had a very disappointing year. They're 4-4, but they have talent, so you never know what could happen. Also, it's a rivalry game in Salt Lake, so who knows from that perspective? But I don't know. I think BYU probably takes care of business, but those are the games this weekend. College football is getting really interesting. Also, you had the first college football playoff rankings have come out. Talk a little bit about that. Came out Tuesday. I think it was a little interesting that it came out the same day that there was a U.S. election going on. I don't know if a lot of people paid attention to it, but if you look at it, Oregon, we'll just take a look at the top 10. Oregon, we can take a look at it all. It's fine. Oregon comes in at number 1, no surprise. Ohio State at number 2, little surprised by that. Georgia at number 3. Miami came in at number 4. Texas at 5. Penn State at 6. Tennessee at 7. Indiana 8. BYU 9. Notre Dame 10. That rounds out the top 10. And then you look after that, and I think there's some surprises. Here, I think Alabama obviously at 11, Boise State at 12. I don't know if that's a surprise or not. This one's a little bit of a surprise. I think SMU is at 13 at 8-1, Texas A&M 14, LSU 15, Ole Miss at 17. Louisville cracked the top 25. I don't understand why Louisville keeps getting put in the top 25 for the life of me for anything. I mean, they're 6-3. They're the only 3-loss team in the top 25, and Vanderbilt's better than Louisville. So, I mean, riddle me that. That's just insane. Army is at 25. Missouri is at 24. Clemson stays in at 23. Washington State at 7-1 at 21. They've got an outside shot at the playoffs. Colorado's up to 20. Iowa State, after losing their first game, drops out of the top 10, 17. So it's starting to get really congested in the top 25. I think you got to really look at that at teams with a good chance. I mean, Oregon's got a pretty solid chance to get in. I think Miami's getting to the point where I think they're in regardless if they win the ACC or not. I think there's a really good chance they go undefeated at this point. Run the table. They'll probably get in whether they win the ACC title game. Texas, obviously losing to Georgia, that put a little bit of there, but they're in the running for the title game. Tennessee and Georgia play each other, so one of those teams is kind of going to be out, I think, from that perspective. Penn State lost their first game barely, but boy, did their offense not look very good. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens the rest of the way in college football. Big games this weekend. Obviously, with the big games, you also have something that's going to probably come out of nowhere that's going to be surprising. Tonight, you have one basketball top 25 matchup. You have Florida taking on Jacksonville tonight. Florida's a pretty big favorite in that game. I think they're 20 plus tonight. They're the only SEC game And then obviously tomorrow, we'll talk more about this tomorrow. There's actually a pretty good slate of college basketball tomorrow. Some actually big ranked matchups as well. But we'll talk about more of that tomorrow. It's not going to be a topic for today. Kentucky obviously back in action on Saturday. Sorry, just had to get a drink there. Kentucky. Ooh, that went down the wrong way. Ooh. You ever drink water and it just hits you? Ooh. All right. Well, we're going to learn not to gulp and do that when we're thirsty doing a show anymore. So that was interesting, but and now passed. So it's a little slow, obviously, this week from Kentucky athletics standpoint. The women's team does play tonight, though, I believe. We'll have that. Addie will be covering that tonight, and Elliot will be there as well doing photography. So we'll have some nice coverage from that perspective. We'll have a post-game article if you want to check that out. That's at bleedbluenetwork.com. Bleedbluenetwork.com also has a ton of new content, articles, and things like that. So definitely check out the new website. Opinion recruiting, just about anything that you can imagine. We're starting to really post there pretty aggressively. So check out bleedbluenetwork.com if you have not, and check out those articles, post-game reactions, opinions, things like that. Yeah, that's, what am I looking at here? All right. Nothing else crazy, I think, is someone had sent me something and I was checking it out, but I don't think it's, yeah. Okay. Nothing we need to cover. So I think there's this weekend with Kentucky basketball, there's some really interesting things that I guess we're hoping to see. Duke is on the horizon on Tuesday. If you're, if you would like, we're going to do a live watch along on Tuesday night for that game. So that should be kind of fun. We did it for we obviously did that for the Tennessee football game. It got a really good reaction. So we're going to try and do that this weekend. I think just keep that same defensive consistency. And I think the team rebounding maybe is the one thing I think you want to see from Kentucky kind of happen a little bit better potentially. Again, we're nitpicking a lot when it comes to Kentucky basketball right now because multiple things. Number one, they've looked really good. Number two, they've looked really good. And number three, they've looked really good. So I think from that perspective, you've just really got to nitpick from what we're looking at in terms of that, especially, I mean, Duke obviously is going to be the first challenge. You're going to see, you're going to see exactly what this team kind of has and potential right off the bat from that perspective. So I know everyone's looking forward to that. So I think you just want to see clean game, no injuries, improve the team rebounding maybe a little bit. And that's kind of what we're looking for. I'm less worried about shooting if we have a bad night. Listen, I'd rather have a little bit of an off night against Bucknell and then just absolutely go ham and a half against Duke the following Tuesday. It'll also be interesting. I mean, look, it's the first time the team's going to be playing. It's not a road game. I get it. But going on the road and doing the whole team thing, right, where they're traveling. So that'll be a first there. You know, how they react. I mean, look, there's a lot of firsts for this team, so it's going to be interesting. I know everybody's really looking forward to that game. I know I am. So tomorrow we'll have a lot more coverage of basketball and previewing the Kentucky game against Bucknell on Saturday. It's like I said, it's a little bit of a slow. Like Thursday's a slow day, or this has kind of been a slow week, I think, in terms of just sports in general. I think everyone's been a little distracted by other things anyway that we're not going to talk about because that's not what we do here. The game tonight, you've got in the football world, you've got Appalachian State at Coastal Carolina, Florida Atlantic at East Carolina. Nothing that's going to make you get silly excited. From a I want to really watch the game standpoint. Friday, which is tomorrow. You have Cal, Wake Forest, Iowa, UCLA, Rice at Memphis, and New Mexico State, San Diego State. Even if it's an unranked matchup, you just don't have, like, there's just no name power really in any of those games that we're looking at over that. An interesting game in the SEC this weekend is South Carolina at Vanderbilt. That is a very interesting game, I think. South Carolina is favored by 4.5 going to Nashville. That could be a very fun game to watch. Yeah, I think we covered most of that. So I'm gonna keep. It's just gonna be a short show today. We usually go like an hour, but I think today, no point in really getting into a lot of other stuff because tomorrow is going to be a big day, big show previewing college basketball, Kentucky game against Bucknell, looking at the games over the weekend. And then obviously Monday, we're going to be really previewing Duke and talking about that Monday and Tuesday. Monday, we'll also be getting into the, Mark Stoops press conference, talking about what's going on with some of the players. It's a lot of big things coming in terms of Kentucky sports over the next week. A lot of bigger things, I think, as we start getting into the basketball season, talking more about that. And obviously, obviously Kentucky football has not had a great season, but I am very excited about watching the college football playoffs, especially having 12 teams in it. It's the first time. Really excited to see how that shakes out. So thanks for listening, everybody. We will catch you later. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast as well. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Also check out, again, Bleed Blue Network. And make sure you check out State Line Co., who made this amazing hat, statelineco.shop, and promo code Bleed Blue for 10% off your purchase. Appreciate everybody listening. Happy Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Bleed Blue Network podcast. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of Kentucky sports with us. Don't forget to stay connected by following us on Twitter at BleedBNation. Your feedback means the world to us. So take a moment to leave a review. Not only does it help us improve, but it also helps others discover the show. Until next time, keep cheering, keep listening, and keep bleeding blue.